gonna record off OBS. Um, at the moment, last week I had, and I've received all your messages and I listened to them. I want to throw something out there real quick. Last week I had been on these dating apps a lot. I know, I know. Um, I, you know, I still have the flesh. I still desire that intimacy, but I had biked quite a distance to hang out with somebody, and I expected to. Not that anything, I wanted anything out of it. I just wanted to have a connection with someone of the opposite gender, I guess. And I kind of got led on. I kind of had my time wasted. And when I headed back, I felt this dissatisfaction in myself, this lack, which was something I pay attention to very closely because this lack has got me in a lot of trouble when I've acted out of unconscious behavior through it. And undoubtedly, this time it did again, as it did before when I got arrested uh, when I was 19. Yeah, I'm 23 now, so when I was 19, I was in jail for 3 months. Found God in jail. That's a whole different story, though. Oh my gosh! But I was biking back, and I felt that lack, and I was like, "Why am I feeling this way?" Because at first I wasn't going to actually question it. I was just gonna probably smoke because I like to smoke a lot of weed. Even if I go on long breaks of sobriety for months, because when I go sober, I have a lot of mystical experiences. I don't have mystical experiences when I'm high as fuck. Excuse my language, but people usually think um like I'm on psychedelics or something. It's like, no, I wish I was. You know where I could get some, but I was biking back and I came across this building and I broke into it, the school, because I was going to steal some stuff out of it so I can go back home with some stuff or something. Because I'm not gonna just bike all this distance and yeah, you know how the ego works. It wants something in return for its efforts, and I had got caught by the police, and I went without resisting it. I was very calm. I didn't feel polarized. I didn't feel like saying "f the police," all that kind of stuff. I was very honest with them. I told them that's just me, how I got in there. Um, I was very tranquil, and this was strange for them. They would check on me while I was in the cop car and be like, "Are you doing all right there, Spencer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, um, thank you for asking." And I was at so much peace. Um, and when I got to jail, and through the jail process, I had fell asleep afterwards because jail process to get you in the system. Oh my gosh, like just take my picture, give me a cell, let me go to sleep. I guess many of them don't really understand that too much. Like you when you're outside like that, you're so tired. But I had this dream where this is where I'm really getting to. The build up is for this point. Because when I was in that car, all could think about was stillness and silence and love. So when I went to sleep, it's not any surprise that this seeped into my subconscious and I had a dream. And this dream was that I was in the woods for some reason. And I was in this like seminar, and these people were talking about the attributes of God. And I bowed my head down and I was like, God is silence. God is stillness. And I woke up from it. Because I was uttering this to myself in my sleep. I do very unusual things. People think are unusual, but I think it's casual. Like sometimes if I'm very conscious in a dream, I'm always conscious in dreams, but there will be times where I could feel my body about to wake up and I'll be like, I gotta go. God bless you. See you later. And I'll wake up from the dream. And it's nothing like I'm seeking out. These are just things that happen to the human organism speaking to you. There's things that happen to him. He himself doesn't really seek them out. But I had got released that same morning, strangely, because usually you gotta be in there for like a week and then you go to court. But the court was in the morning and it was a great day. It was almost 70 degrees. And the officer was like, yo, judges are in a really good mood today. Everyone was in a good mood in that day. And I had gotten out and I felt so good. I felt amazing. Because when I was in there were certain things I was coming to conclusions of. Like, why do they have you in a square room? I'm like, well, if you put water in a square, it stops the flow of energy. So when people are very agitated and they go into jail, is to contain that energy and that frequency and to de-escalate them. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And if you unfold a square in the cube or a hexagon, it makes a cross. Like I'm coming to strange conclusions while I'm in this cell, and they could see me there. They could see me on the camera, probably wondering like, what is he talking about? You know, but they know because most police officers are Freemasons, and like I'm a Hermeticist, so like I don't like to say it, but we're kind of related in a sense. Um, but I realized that still state. I knew the still state, it wasn't my first time feeling it. I think what I'm trying to really say is we seek things because we don't actually understand that we already have it, and by not understanding that we already have it, we do very drastic things to try to compensate for the sense of separation that we're going through. So, look, I'm never gonna be a Christian, like a real conventional by the book Christian. I'm too aggressive, I'm too brash, and I'm too spontaneous. And this didn't just happen for no reason. When I turned my life to God, when I had to turn my life to God, or things were going to get worse while I was in jail the first time when I was 19, it was very apparent that all the things that I was taught weren't really laid out in a way to where I could keep the individualistic parts of me. So when I'm going through these dreams and visions of like torment, and they were happening, like you said, at high frequency, because usually I would go through like 1 or 3 sleep paralysis like every year or two, very low. Now I'm having it like 10 times in a night, tens of times in a week, at least about 50 times a month. And I would have to cry out in the name of God, Christ. Sometimes nothing would happen. Sometimes things would happen. So I had to figure out what state was I in to where it worked, and what state was I in to where it didn't. And I realized, okay, a state of fear, even though I might cry out God's name in fear, but if I do it in love, because in these states, in these dreams and visions, I don't have really an ego. You don't really have that filter that's trying to control the experience. I'm much more sensitive when I'm in my dreams. I feel so much more human. Like I have a wider, broader access to all my emotions and the self, to consciousness. So that trained me to have to be, and I was homeless during a lot of this time. So like only up until recently, I have a place to lay my head, consistently. Uh, but even in the homelessness, like there's no way that I could be nice or naive. So like while I'm in my dreams and visions, people don't even know. Like I was like I was just in a dream where I'm killing people, or killing, or like really dark dreams. So there's really good dreams too. where I'm like uncovering the nature of the psyche. I have to. No choice. I didn't ask for this shit. But let me be coherent. I'm kind of going all over the place. One dream stuck out the most. A couple years ago, where I was with a friend named Daniel, and I know him in real life. We were essentially students of the same mentor. He deviated farther into drugs. I deviated a little bit into drugs, but I maintained um, my soul more without having experienced soul loss too much. But we had argued in this dream, and then we departed from each other. And I was leaving out this building, and our mentor was just watching us, smiling. He noticed me when I was walking out, didn't stop me or anything. He was just observing. And I was behind these people who I could identify as churchgoers. And I was behind them, but I was walking kind of slow, and I was like, I could probably fly right now. And I just started flying out of will, soft will, not hard will, but just as much will as you will to breathe, just as much will as it was willed for me to fly. And I was flying. I'm gonna put my microphone in a place where I can actually gesture and move. And I was like in this slow motion of flow where I'm just like flying, and I'm like this trail of stars where my arm is leaving. It's just like a trail of beautiful suns, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in complete unity with Source right now. And I got to this point where I was, where I was going up these stairs to the shelter I used to live at, and I looked down, and it was my shadow, and it was holding his hand up, and it was like it had this ball of darkness, and like my vision was zooming in on it, and I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. And I was like, oh, I have a lot of sin, but I also have a lot of good. And I realized, oh, everyone kind of has this, not kind of, everyone has this too. It's just not realized in them. And what that kind of taught me was like, yeah, look, whether or not people like to hear this or not, you are divine, but you're also human, and you should never forget your humanity. You should never choose, because you're a little bit of both. So it'd be insane for you to be like, okay, well, I'm just human. I'm just, I'm just sinner. Shame, guilt, apathy. You stay in those lower frequencies. Nothing really changes. You think it does, but it doesn't. And then you move up. You start going into more courage. You go into the higher feelings of joy and essentially enlightenment, love, bliss. But you can't hang out there for too long. Even my friend Daniel, with drugs, understood that he couldn't stay in that kind of state for long. Like it's very temporal. And you need to find natural ways to go about it, like breathing exercises. So I started getting more into meditation. I started getting into Wim Hof, fasting, um, and I would start having even more mystical experiences. There's not a label I would put on this human organism, the human speaking to you, but I would say that he operates as a mystic. So if he had to use a label, he'd use mystic. But I started having a lot of out of body experiences while listening to binaural beats because my mentor had told me you operate more into delta brainwave frequency, which is essentially it is enlightenment, but you're quite young. You still need to be more hands-on. So you should go into delta, not delta. I'm sorry, alpha, not beta. Beta is where most of the world resonates at, and this is why a lot of our problems come from beta and alpha. But if you're already in a higher state, you can lower yourself for temporarily and get the shit done. So he advised, like, okay, I do that. And when I was doing this, I was listening to a different one than I was supposed to. And I had this moment where I was in sleep paralysis, but there was no fear. There was love. It was and freedom and so much liberation. I can't describe it. And I was so convinced that I was dying. That I was like, oh, I'm dying right now. And I could sense my friends coming. And Daniel and his girlfriend. I'm like, oh, my friends are coming. And I woke up and I walked to them. I got up with my eyes closed, but I walked to them with my eyes open. And I just was in the middle of them and I hugged them. They were surprised. I knew they were coming. I never explained it to them, but there were certain things like that started happening. I started going through a lot of synchronicities and seeing into the spirit. I had to fight a lot of dark forces. I had to learn how to fight them. I had to learn how to not fight them and let the light fight for me. And I had gotten so much joy out of it, so much peace. But the thing about it is, it's so hard to sit somebody down who's very Western. I shouldn't say that, but it's true, and tell them all the teachings I had to go through, like learning about metaphysics and how consciousness interacts with us, and how consciousness is the ultimate is reality essentially, because there's only one consciousness, and correlating it back to the Bible. And it's very hard to do that, and people look at not crazy. I don't care. I don't give a damn about being looked at as crazy. No one ever calls me a liar. So I guess, yeah, most people think I'm crazy or I'm going through like psychosis or something. Because I have suffered psychosis before. But even then, like, people have a misinterpretation on psychosis. They think it's just like spiritual delusion. But it's one thing when you're talking to yourself. It's another thing when you're talking to yourself, or you're going through dreams and visions and you're coming to conclusions that you don't have, that you have no prior knowledge to. They're like, and then you tell people about this and they're so fundamental, they think it's demonic. They don't understand, like, you have it in you already. Have these things in you. Like, you don't need. Apparently, we do need Christ to be able to tell it, but that's kind of a shame. You need God to tell you this. Is that how bad, how separate we are from God to where we can't go within ourselves and find these things out on our own? Like, do all your research, do all your analysis, but be still and know that I am God. That the I am is present throughout all things, and you're just temporarily experiencing separation right now. But like, the more you get identified with form, like me and my visions and dreams, and I'll be like, okay, what's going on? And my body will fear, get dragged right back down until I wake up again. so that's so that would just happen. That there would be nothing to be afraid of. But the mind, the ego, fears it because it doesn't like peace. It doesn't like stillness. It needs noise. It needs chaos to identify with. And I know it's just like I'm just kind of going on right now, but that's just that's when I'm at my best. Is when I kind of could just go anywhere in conversations. I don't have to feel trapped in conversations or debates or whatever. But I do thank God for being present with me throughout all those things and showing himself in me in those dreams. Like, when I raised the dead in a dream, that wasn't me raising the dead. That was Christ in me raising the dead. It was my true nature, the Christ nature. Everyone's in true nature. Don't care how separate they are from it. They have it in them. And if they act as if they don't know, or they act ignorant, forgive them for their ignorance. Forgive them that they're ignorant to love. Forgive them that they're ignorant to spiritual insight, that they're ignorant to a God. Some people just are ignorant that there even is a God, or there's a life outside the body. And a lot of the things I was practicing was all psychological. Like, if you look into Carl Jung, Hermeticism, a little bit of Jordan Peterson, Gnosticism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity. That's like the things I was mostly into. That's what shaped me. Even at a young age, before I knew any of the spirituality, I remember one thing I knew was balance. I knew balance because I loved Michael Jackson. I'd watch him dance, and I'd wonder, man, how can he just spin like that for so long? And oh, my dad would tell me, oh, it's because he knows how to balance himself. It's like, okay, balance. And I remember one time I was in grade school, first grade or second grade. I was very young, And I had a marker and I drew a positive symbol and a negative symbol on my hand, and I was like, I did this. Just went back into my being a kid again. Like it was just something I used to play. Like it was just all play to me. So there's nothing that serious. Um, I just and I still do. Uh, I fight with spiritual ego. I know I'm different. Everyone's different. It's just like my different is realized. It doesn't mean you're above somebody or you can elevate yourself uh out of pity for another person. Like you're stepping on their backs to elevate yourself up. It's not spiritual narcissism. It's not real. Uh, you're not really living when you're doing that. I just hope that we enter an age because we do live in the dark ages. We do live in revelations. I've had dreams and visions of this. I count on my dreams a lot. I talk about them a lot because I count on them more than my own waking moments. Where I've definitely seen a Christ figure, a Christ expression, judging the world and restoring the world, destroying it essentially, but only destroying it to the people who are. I feel bad for people who are it's still in the 3D, but it is there. It's the end of the world to the people who are worldly. But it's just there's no way that there's the end of the world for people who already know that you're not in the world anyway, and like you're not from here, and you incarnate here to learn and to be an expression of consciousness exploring itself essentially, and you need separation in contrast to unity. You need contrast. I talk to a lot of Christians about contrast. They don't really like the idea that you don't need darkness to know what light is. Well, my truth, I will say, is that I don't think that is. When I told you about that dream where I had to look at my own nature, it was very evident that the darkness and the light were had in some kind of relationship to one another. That they weren't exactly as separate as people think. Um, know yourself.